In this one, we get stuck underneath the layout, carry out some minor landscape modifications, finish the retaining walls, wire up the station lights and install them. This one is a cracker. Hi, welcome back to Chadwick Model Railway. I'm Charlie, and in this video we're going to improve the main station. Now, I came down to the railway room yesterday and I got stuck amongst the station lighting. It was an absolute nightmare, so let me show you why it was so difficult. Now, hopefully you're aware that underneath the main board is my fiddle yard. So to do any maintenance of the wiring underneath the main board, clearly you have to move all the trains away from that area of the fiddle yard, lay a couple of blankets and then sort of get amongst it. Now you can see the cables that drop down onto this little sort of wiring bus for that string of lights, and the two cables come down from each light onto a little sort of wiring bus where I've soldered them on and then cover them in a little bit of tape. Obviously the black tape goes on the black wire and the red on the red wire, all part of my obsessive OCD type behaviour. Now, I bought these lights from Layouts for You, and they are a warm white light, and I've got sort of 2.8 volts running through them. But hopefully you'll agree they're not too bright, which we often find on people's layouts. Now, it's worth mentioning how I managed to splice those lights into that cable. So as an example now, I've got a set of cable and all I'm using here is 702 cable, and then all the lights go on in parallel. That's it. So you don't go from light to light, you just place them along the cable so they all get a separate power feed. That way, if one light packs up, the other lights will all stay on. So I've soldered the tails of the first light onto the ends of the cable, which is the easy bit. So now I'll show you how I put another light sort of 4 or 5 inches along the cable. Now, it's all to do with these nifty set of wire strippers from DCC Concepts, because what they can do is they can reveal the conductor by pushing back the insulator on cables. So if I just insert this 702 into there and I just give it a pull, hopefully you can see now that the bare cable is revealed. Marvellous. So if I do that on the red as well, easy. So now what we need to do is to solder our light onto these bare cables. Now I should just strip back the insulation on the next light, and I'm using my nifty little wire strippers that you may have seen me use before. These are not cheap wire strippers, and if you look at that number there, it's RS382-2847. They're an expensive pair of strippers, but they'll last years and years. Anyway, so I use these to strip back the insulation and then give it a twist. And then all we need to do then is, I'll strip back a bit more on that one actually. And then all I do, using the red one first, is twist the red wire from the light around the bare section of cable revealed by the wire strippers. So there we are, that's how it's kind of taking shape. Now, with a soldering iron, and my soldering iron is set to 400 degrees centigrade with lead solder. This is 60-40 lead solder. Is I whack it on there and hopefully you can see how simple it is. So I shall just zip on and do the second one, bear with me, and then we'll connect it up and see if it works. Anyway, so I'll wind that around that conductor there. And once more with a soldering iron, drop a solder, put it on. Lovely. And then with a little bit of insulating tape is I just cover those connections so they don't short out. And as you can imagine, doing this underneath that board was just awful. So there's the red one because of my OCD. A little bit of black. Okay. Now these are rated at 3 volts and you cannot put more than 3 volts in these, otherwise they will blow. So all we need to do now is connect these up to my little transformer. And as you can see, they both work. Lovely. Easy as that. Now you could use an ordinary sort of 3 volt supply coming off a little plug-in transformer. However, I use one of these that you've probably seen me use before. And I buy these from JS Models from a chap called Jonathan. And as you can see, it's got 2.7 volts coming out, and going into it, if I press this other button, no, that's the on-off button. Going into it is 16.5 volts, and coming out is 2.7. That's just an on-off button to turn off the display. And a word of warning, if you buy one of these, the rear stat on the top is what you wind it down to get the right voltage, is you wind the voltage down to give you your correct output voltage before you connect up your wires. And it takes a long time to turn this. You turn it anti-clockwise until the voltage drops to 3 volts, or in my case 2.7 on those, and then you connect it up. Do not connect up and then try and turn it down, because you'll naturally blow these lights straight away. So you don't want to do anything like that. Lovely. Now it's worth mentioning about the lights. I bought them from Layouts for You, and you can also buy a single light, just the light on one side. So yeah, easy done really. Good bits of kit from a sort of a reasonable supplier really, no problems at all. If however you've only got a 12 volt supply that you're going to use, then Layouts for You do provide the correct resistors to take the voltage down from 12 volts down to 3 volts. So it's a good one. Right, let's do some landscaping. Now this area here has really pretty much been neglected, so what do I need to do? Well, I need to extend this this fence all the way up to at least to here. This will do this today. Then of course you've got the foliage to rack in behind it to sort of mask in against this backdrop. Coming forward from there, we've got to put some foliage in to this area here, and then finally to finish this bit off is obviously we need some coping stones to run up this wall. So let's first glue the fence in, then sort out some foliage that I can pop in behind, and then work our way forward. And of course it's all rather ridiculous really, because I should have done all this before I put the lamps in. And there we are. And by the way, I've taken out the absolute aspect signals, because when we come into doing the platform, I don't want to sort of smash those up by accident. So I try to keep those out of the way for safety's sake. So I'm going to put some cling film out over the platform area and get on with sorting out this backseam palaver here with the fence and stuff. I always like cling film to cover stuff up. And hopefully that'll do nicely. Now to super glue the fence in place, what I tend to do with super glue is pop some on a piece of polythene, because on polythene it doesn't react, it doesn't go off. So if we just leave it there, and then cocktail sticks being the kind of weapon of choice, all I do is then put some super glue on the feet of the fence, the bottom of the fence posts, and then hopefully it will glue when we go to stick it in place. Now for the coping stones, I'm going to use these from Scale Model Scenery, LX2 44.00. They come on a fret. It's not an MDF fret, this is just sort of thin cardboard really, so you need to run a scalpel down there to dig out the stones, like so. And it says in the instructions that if you wish to paint them, don't use a very thin paint because the cardboard could sort of delaminate if you're going to whack along then and soak it, it will just come apart. Now to paint them I use Vallejo's 70.870 medium sea grey, and you don't need a great deal, it's just a case of taking away this the sort of browny feel that I really didn't want. I was after more of a greyy look, but also if you can see on the sides where you've cut it from the fret, there's actually little white dots where it's cut off, so we don't want those to show, so we'll just put a very thin coat of this sea grey paint over it, nothing too thick. Make sure you maintain the gaps in the stones, otherwise you lose the feel of coping stones, but hopefully it'll come out okay. Now I'm using the deadly weapon known as the hot glue gun. This is a Bosch PKP 18E, but the glue that I've got in here is actually from Hobbycraft, and I think it tends to be a bit too streaky, so rather than last time, which I put glue on the bits and bobs and then put it over, I thought this time what I might try is to put the glue on the surface and then add the lichen and stuff to the surface, because this way you don't get so much of the stringy fibres coming across the layout. If that makes any sense. And I think we're done. So the next thing, of course, is to get rid of this cover here. So I need to paint in some PVA and then sprinkle it with good old Woodland Scenics blended turf. And that will give us the basic ground cover before once more we come in with some good old bushes and everything else. Having put down the cling film, it's a godsend really, because it takes the fear out of spilling the PVA all over the stuff that's taken you so long to progress. Of course, sprinkling this stuff on means it's bound to go everywhere, but you can just vacuum cleaner off the excess in the morning and then using a stocking or a pair of tights over the nozzle, and obviously you can then recycle the excess. Now, as you might expect, it's now the following morning, so we want to remove our cling film and then, using a vacuum cleaner with a stocking over the end, remove the excess scatter for recycling. that's looking much more reasonable. So now we move on to the coping stones, and I'm using Deluxe Rocket Card Glue. This stuff is pretty nifty, and it's quite a runny glue, but it is very, it's a lot stronger than you might kind of think. So here we go. I must confess, I was very surprised on how effective this is when I built the platforms. So it's just a case of popping the glue onto the coping stones, and then I'll just install sort of 2 at a time. Whoops. Without squeezing too much out over the wall. The main thing is to protect, obviously, the main structure. And then hopefully, if I'm not masking the camera too much, and I must confess, I'm quite pleased with that. Bit of glue running down the wall. Don't want that, do we? Was taking shape quite well. Now, with all this slot sort of in place, although there's a great deal to be done on the scenery front, and hopefully Margaret's gone shopping and she'll buy some hanging basket liner that I need to start to bring up the real fabric of the vegetation. But in the meantime, I'm left with these computer screens and keyboard issues. Now clearly this is exactly where I intend to build the platforms and the station building for Chadwick Parkway. That's not going to work then, is it? But I recall a video from a guy called Larry, you may know him as the DCC guy, whereas he installed under his layout sort of pull-out trays. And as if by magic, I'd ordered from Amazon and they were delivered yesterday, these sort of slidey brackets. Lovely. So my idea is I install this underneath. Now, the ulterior motive to getting these lights wired in was once this is installed, it will make it even more difficult to wire those lights. To wire these platform lights, of course, it's not going to be such easy, but the tray will be out, so then you'll get access underneath. So I think what I'll do next is install this slidey drawer and see how I get on. It's quite straightforward really. It's just a case of the drawer fits onto these two lips, as it were, and across there, and the whole thing just slides in and out. It seems reasonably sturdy, but let's fit it and see how we get on. So once more, all the trains have moved back, and my life is now dependent on a clamp. The wonders of working alone. Well, that wasn't as much fun as I thought it would be, and it's adequate right up to the point where you've got to close it and you realise the mouse doesn't fit. Never thought about the mouse. Anyway, we've made the best of a bad job, I think. We just need a mouse stowage, I suppose. There we are. Right. Well, now it's in and sorted, another couple of things come to mind. The first being that when the keyboard is out and in operation, I don't now have a clear view of the 14 points that are in the throats of these crossovers here. And the other thing is when I'm operating train controller, I very rarely use the keyboard. It tends to be a mouse operation with clicking this and dragging that, starting or stopping. And that's a purely a mouse operation. So whether I just need to reserve a space or a small shelf for a mouse as well as this contraption, you know, so we can leave this out of the way and then have some kind of a mouse thing here, is food for thought. Anyway, this seems reasonably sturdy. I mean, it's not the beefiest thing in the world. Got it from Amazon. I think it was 15 quid, got it yesterday. And if you're interested, I'll leave a link in the show more tab. There we go. But the thing is, now I have cleared the space on a more permanent basis to build the platforms. So let's take you through my thought process for that. Now here's our warship sat at what will be platform 1 with a rake of 7 coaches. Well, it's actually 6 coaches with a full brake on the back end, which is slightly shorter. Now, I have mentioned in a previous video that I'm considering covering the whole of this area in 18mm ply to bring the ground level up, because all too often on layouts we find that you pull up, your cars are parked outside and then you have to get up the steps to get to the platform, whereas in reality cars will park alongside the railway station. All you need in a height difference really is the pedestrian curb. So what I'm contemplating, what I am going to do with some offcuts of ply is cut them in a sweeping curve and then cover the whole area in that ply. And also right back here where this hillside is, and then cut this hillside out so it's level with the top of the new landform, and then I'll extend the platform then in this direction, and then you get the down ramp at the end where the trains will stop. So I just need to get cracking with a pencil and a saw. Now, as you can see, it's a pretty good fit. Now, I feel absolutely certain there's a better way of marking this board than using a set of dividers, but I don't have a decent compass and I can't think of a better way, so I've done one pass already. So all I'm doing is scribing a line on the plywood. Every time it hits a fish plate, it comes away. And then with the jigsaw, I can cut out this shape. And if I make a complete hash of it, I've got enough timber to spare. So with a jigsaw, I shall go outside and make a mess. Well, that's the three major pieces in place. I'm sorry I couldn't show you more outside, but it's absolutely toasting outside and the sunshine is very, very fierce. So you can see the problems I had trying to record. But anyway, those are the three major pieces there. So the next thing to do is to get a biscuit jointer and then hopefully with that join these two together permanently. Sadly, what I can't do at the moment is cut these other bits off because until I've worked out exactly where they're going to go, it's quite difficult to do. I must confess that in the back of my mind, I know that if I make a mess of this, I can always, at this stage, because it's not ballasted, I can always move that track, you know, sort of 5 millimeters one way or the other. So if I get it terribly wrong, it's not the end of the world. But as you can see at the other end there, the warship is just beyond the edge of this, but obviously there's another bit of platform to come in here and a ramp, and at the other side we need another down ramp at this end. Well, I do hope that you agree that the Class 31 running through the station there with all the lights on look fabulous, and hopefully when the other station is complete it will look just as good. Fingers crossed. If you've got any advice on how I marked out that platform with the scriber, I just couldn't see it. I know you're supposed to use a coach with a pen and all the rest of it, but because of the thickness of the board I couldn't. But if you see a better way, then please leave a comment down in the comments below. Not just necessarily for me, but for everyone. There are loads of people who read all the comments and obviously want some sound advice, me included. So remember the comment section, whatever it's about, the comment section is there for us all. Lovely. Right. Anything else? Yes, Margaret's been shopping and she's back with the hanging basket liner, so I can crack on with that hillside. Next one is the West Camel Model Railway Society Christmas exhibition is now booked for the date of Tuesday the 30th of December 2025 down in West Camel. So if you live in the West Country and you're free for the day, you know, between Christmas and the New Year, and you're under someone else's feet, let's say, then, you know, jump in the car, come down and see us, bring the children along by all means. Like to see you. Lovely. Next bit, I love statistics, excuse me, and when I delve into the stats in YouTube, I see that 45% of the channel viewers view on a TV. Now, unless I'm very much mistaken, you can't subscribe via a TV. So if you're not a subscriber and you do want to watch it on a TV, do pick up your phone, find the channel and hit the old subscriber button. Subscribing is absolutely free. It doesn't cost you a penny. But why are YouTubers trying to gain more subscribers? It's because if your channel shows growth, then YouTube will recommend it to more like-minded people. And the more like-minded people we can get into this hobby, the better. Because it's a wonderful hobby and it inspires us all. Lovely. That sort of wraps it up. If you've enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. And I'd like to thank the patrons who make it all possible. And if you want to become one, there's the button. There's the old subscriber button, as I've said. Subscribing is free. A thumbs up wouldn't go amiss. And there's a video here and here. I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.